Hello and welcome to my interview today. Today I have with me Mary Potter Kenyon. This woman is an author, a coach, and an educator. Having suffered 3 great losses in just 3 years' time, she mined her pain and turned her grief into an outlet for creativity and helping others. I can't wait for you to hear her story. It's really exciting. She has some really cool things to share with you. So we'll bring her in here so that you can meet her and hear her story. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Danielle Burnock from DanielleBurnock.com. Love yourself from Survive to Thrive, that lady on the internet who loves you. Welcome, Mary. Thank you for being on my show today. I so appreciate you opening up and sharing your story with my listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
As I told my listeners, you suffered 3 great losses in 3 years' time. What was your life like before all that loss came into your life?
Well, before 2010, I was a homeschooling mother of 8 children.
8?
And eight children. And I was also a freelance writer. And I think 1987 was my first published article. So wow. I kind of clung to that part of my creativity as I raised kids. But until my husband died, and I'm jumping ahead, but until my husband died in 2012, that was my identity as a wife and a homeschooling mother of 8.
Yeah, wow. But then you had 3 losses that happened in 3 years' time. What happened? Who were these relationships that you lost, and how did that take place?
My mother, a very, very creative woman who had a home business selling wood carvings and quilts and beautiful paintings. She was diagnosed with terminal cancer in 2010 in August, and she died on my birthday. That November, she died on my birthday in November 2010. And 17 months later, my husband, who was a 5-year cancer survivor, so my mom died of terminal cancer. And then my husband, who was a survivor of cancer, passed away after a stent surgery in the hospital, a heart stent surgery. And so he unexpectedly died sometime during the night in March of 2012. And less than 17 months later, my 8-year-old grandson, who had been fighting cancer since he was 5, passed away. So my mother in 2010, my husband in 2012, and my grandson in 2013.
Wow. What kind of cancer did your grandson have?
So my grandson had a Wilms tumor, which is around the kidney, and actually has a good survival rate unless it's a certain type, which has happened to be. And he went through radiation, chemotherapy, surgery, and eventually a stem cell transplant. And he went through everything. I mean, he and my daughter were in the hospital sometimes 30 days at a time.
Oh, wow. That's awful. It's just wrong. Children, that's just wrong. Wow. What kind of cancer did your husband overcome?
So my husband had oral cancer on the back of his tongue. My mother had, she had lung cancer. So the big C, those statistics became reality for our family. At some point, I remember when my husband had his heart attack, my son said, "Oh, we're that family now." You know, the family that everybody looks at and hopes if they don't get too close, it won't catch, that they'll start experiencing those things. And then his dad died, and then his nephew died. My grandson died.
Wow. Your nephew died too?
Well, his nephew, because my son was saying we are that family now. He says we are the family everybody avoids because they don't want it to be catching.
Yeah, well, it isn't catchy, but that's a lot of loss. Wow. And then, your husband recovers only to die a year and a half later. That's
five and a half years after his cancer. That's when he passed away. But those were the best 5.5 years of our marriage. Those were something about cancer, going through cancer changed both of us, and me as a caregiver, and him maybe looking at what could have happened. Those were really good years. So I always think of that as a bonus time, is because he could have died with his cancer. And then we had those bonus 5.5 years together.
Wow. So you were already mining the good out of that back then. So you had practice at mining the good out of awful things, because I told my listeners that you mined your pain and turned your grief into an outlet for creativity, which we'll get to. But so how did you initially respond to all this loss? How did you cope when bam, bam, bam?
I never got to grieve my mother like you normally would, because a month after her death, my grandson was diagnosed with cancer. So immediately we were thrust into the mindset of grandparents who were facing that. I'm watching my daughter face that, watching my son-in-law face that. When my husband passed away, I still had 4 of our 8 children still lived at home. And as I said before, I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom doing some part-time work, home business work. I mean, writing freelance articles, writing for the newspaper sometimes. And so suddenly I was thrust into, okay, who am I now? Who am I without this person? And how am I going to do this? And it was a pretty scary time. Then by the time my grandson lost his battle, I had grown so much in faith and in seeing what the people that God brought into my life, and seeing I was being refined, truly refined by fire. That's the way I look at it, is through these losses, I became a different person.
Wow. How old were your children that were still at home?
The youngest was 8 when her dad died, and the oldest at home was 18. And so, and the 2 daughters in between. So he left home quite quickly after his dad died. But so it was me and the 3 girls kind of facing, and we got very close during that time too. So there's always something I can look at and think, well, there were people who said, well, at least you have kids at home. And you know,
people always throw that
they always have to say at least this, at least
that, at least what they're trying. They haven't been on the other side.
Right. They don't know
what they don't understand that at least doesn't do anything.
But they
good.
weren't thinking about the fact that because I had children at home, I couldn't scream and cry in the middle of the night. And I had an 8-year-old crawling into bed with me every night. So it was just like, yes, I had my children at home, but it meant I had to cover some of my grief, I think, sometimes, because I didn't want to scare them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to pause here to who's listening and reiterate that. Mm-hmm. If you know someone who has lost someone, please don't say at least anything.
Right.
At least this, at least that, at least this. I've been through a lot of loss myself. At least does not help. If you don't know what to do, keep listening to this, educate yourself so that you do know what to say, what will be helpful, because at least does not help.
Thank you. That's true.
So then, this was your initial response. So long-term, you had a mindset that really served you. What was that mindset, and how did you respond after that?
Well, I think because I was growing in faith at the same time. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but I love research, and I have to research everything. And it seemed as if I was, and I really literally was studying grief. I mean, it's like, I have to pass this test. I have to do this right. And so I'm going to study this and figure out how to do it so I don't flunk like we can flunk grief. So I instinctively knew what I needed. And I'd been a writer, but I'd never been a journaler. And so I instinctively turned to journaling at that time. 2 days after my husband died, I sat down and wrote a list in my journal of what I was thankful for. So I instinctively turned to that. I instinctively turned to prayer. I did not know how to read a Bible or figure a Bible out, but I knew I needed it. So I was instinctively studying that at the same time. At some point, I think it's like 3 months after my husband died, I wondered how people did grief without journaling or without doing something active, because it felt like I always had to do something active. And so that's when I started looking at the science of grief and science, because I knew we're all going to lose somebody. Okay, so we have to be built to withstand this. Our bodies, our minds, our hearts have to be built to withstand that. So I started studying. I read books like The Other Side of Sadness, which is The Science of Bereavement. Another book was The Truth About Grief, The Myth of 5 Stages, and The New Science of Bereavement. So I started reading and discovered that science supports what my heart already knew, is that we are built to withstand grief. And
you're the first person I heard that from. I want to pause and say that again, built to withstand, because we don't feel like that.
No.
We feel like we're going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to know that intuitively, I feel like that was a gift that God gave you to know that you were built to withstand. And even just, I'm saying it over and over again on purpose, repeating myself so that whenever anyone listens to that, they'll hear it enough times. You are built to withstand. You are built to withstand. You will survive. You can survive. So can you share some of that science, the science of the grief that you learned?
And thank you.
I find that fascinating.
Thank you for repeating that, because that gives you hope. Because when you first lose somebody very important to you, if you don't have that hope that you're going to be okay. The best thing another widow ever said to me was, this is tough. I'm not going to kid you. This is going to be tough, but you will be okay. And what I say to somebody who loses some, if I have at least the same type of loss, like spouse loss or parent loss, is the way you're feeling right now, you're not going to feel that way forever. And and that gives them hope, because we need to be able to hear that. And we can hear the opposite from some people. We can see, oh, and I heard it. I started attending grief support groups, and I heard, oh, the second year is worse. And I was like 3 months out, and I'm thinking, what? Worse than this? Another person would say, oh, I'm 7 years out, and I'm still not okay. And I'm thinking, 7 years and you're not okay. That's scary. That's really scary. So when I looked at the science, and that what happens to us initially with a trauma like loss is we get that our body and our nervous system goes into action to protect us from that. And that is why sometimes you will feel like you're walking through a fog during those early days, weeks, months. There was no sense of time for me after my husband died. And the husband loss was different than the mother loss, and different with the child or grandchild loss. But clocks didn't matter. I didn't have to be anywhere for 3 weeks. And then I had a workshop scheduled. So 2 of the clocks in my house weren't even working. And they stopped sometime during the night that my husband died. I mean, I just would marvel at that, because somebody would say, what's wrong with your clocks? And I'd say, I don't know. And it didn't even matter to me, because time didn't matter. Right. And that's your body protecting yourself and protecting your mind from this trauma of what you went through. Or you might be so tired. And my girls never saw me take a nap before. And all of a sudden I was taking naps, and I just curl up. My couch was they called it mom's nest, because I had books. I had books stacked around me. I had notebooks. I had my journals. And it was just this, I was surrounded by, I could write, I could read, and I could fall asleep on the couch. And one time my 16-year-old daughter, Emily, shook me. I mean, she said, Mom, I'm scared. What's wrong with you? You keep sleeping. Well, that's our body's way of protecting us. So these natural things that kick in that we fear might mean we're not doing this right or whatever, is actually our body and our mind protecting us. And so there's a whole science and studies that are done that we actually are more resilient than some of these support groups might say we are. That I went to support groups that people were going to 7, 8 years out from their loss. And honestly, if you are still, I mean, yes, it might be a support system in that you see people, but if you are still stuck in that same mindset as when will you get better? When will you? So, but if you allow it to happen, if you actively work, because some people need to actively work on it. Let's face it. Some of us really need to get our hands dirty. Everyone needs to
actively. You have to work through it. I learned a term called grief work.
Yes.
I had a lot of loss in my childhood. But after my mom passed, she passed from cancer also, we had hospice involved. And so I was connected to them, and I had grief help for the first time in my life. I had no help as a child.
Yes.
And I learned the term grief work. Oh my goodness, grief work is fantastic. That's what you were doing with the journaling. Grief work is taking the pain from inside your body and getting it outside of your body by doing very specific things. And so, yes, people need to do the work to heal from any kind of trauma. You need to do the work. If you don't do the work, you never will heal.
Right. And we can't run away from it. I mean, you have to go through it. And our natural inclination is I knew a widow who got in an RV with her homeschooled kids and drove for the first year. And she said then when she pulled into the driveway a year later, she had to face it. I mean, she still had that loss, but she hadn't faced it, and it hit her like a ton of bricks. So we do have to face it. We do have to go through it. but we can have other people companioning us through it, or we can actively work through it. And we got to find the way that works for each of us.
Right.
We are individuals. So maybe you want to sit in a support group because I didn't go back. Maybe you do need that. Maybe you need to sit there and talk to other people who have gone through the same thing. Or maybe you need that art or that journaling or whatever it is. Or I do grief retreats. I started a grief retreat 6 years ago. And that's being in a room with other people who've experienced the same kind of loss. Sometimes we get together in groups of specific losses. Other times we do creativity things and stuff, but you have to find out what works for you. But the fact is, I think we have it inside of us, the instinct of knowing what we need. And if we could just listen to ourselves, if we could just listen to what, sometimes we're listening to other people. You need to do this, or you have to do this. You have to go out and do this, or you have to go out to supper with your friends. You have to forget about your grief going out for supper. You're never going to forget about it. Right. And there's people who are scared to say your child's name or your spouse's name or your grandson's name, because that's going to remind you. Well, it's always there. It's just there. That grief is with us. And the people that we loved deserve that. They deserve that. But it doesn't mean we have to wallow in it. It doesn't mean that we have to live that. And they wouldn't want us to. The people who love us that we lose would want us to live our life to the fullest and to be all that we can be, and to get some good out of the grief, to become the best of those people that we lost. We have a choice. Amen. And you don't hear that a lot of times either. We have a conscious choice of, am I going to be broken by this loss? Or am I going to let this break me open, break my heart open, help me be a better person, do things in memory of them, or whatever it is. And that's a conscious choice.
And people need to be told that. Though people are raised in all different ways. And if they were not raised to deal with their grief, or that they have a choice, they will look to everyone around them. And so they will just do what everyone says. And if they are surrounded by people who are not wise, that's how they will be stuck in that. I have a lady friend who I interviewed on her. She lost her daughter. And she shared a story how she spoke with someone at some place she was at, and this woman had been forbidden for saying her, I think it was a grandchild or something, her child. She had a child. She lost a child, and she had not said her child's name since the child died. And it was like 10 years or something like that. Yeah. And my friend, whose name is also Mary, she said, no. She said, you say your child's name. I think it was her child. But the point was, she hadn't said the name. You say that name. Say it right now. What was their name? Say it loud and say it proud. I love how Mary said it. Say it loud and say it proud. And she helped me with that, because there's stigmas out there that put that in you to not say it. I'm not quite sure where I got it, but it kind of like a burr in the field, it gets on you. You got to like get it off of you. And so I remember Mary saying that, say it loud and say it proud. This woman said the name, and she just went to pieces, and she had a breakthrough in her grief because she let this thing out. So pause here again. Loved ones, say their names loud and proud. They died. They didn't cease to have ever existed. Their names matter, and we carry on their memory by saying their names. So don't be afraid of saying names. Don't be afraid of tears, because those are part of healing also. And grief is something we go through. If we want to get healing, we have to go through it. Otherwise, we get stuck in it.
I used to bring Kleenex when I first started speaking, because I wanted to stop the tears, because I felt bad for the people, knowing that they didn't really want to start to cry in front of me. So they'd come up to me and they'd start talking, and I'm handing them Kleenex. And then at some point, when I read about the science of grief and how the tears have the healing effect, then I started my speeches and my presentations with, it's okay to cry. Not only that, it's good to cry, and we need to cry and stuff. So I don't stem the tears anymore. And if you can sit and stand to be next to the person that you love that has lost somebody, sometimes all you have to do is listen, hold their hand, and just let them cry. And that's okay. But we're so uncomfortable with that as a society. We are so uncomfortable, like you said, like, oh, we have to be polite. We can't say things that will make the other person uncomfortable. Like, I've had people, when they ask about my life or something else, I say something about my grandson, or if they just say, how many grandchildren do you have? I'm going to include my grandchild in heaven. And so I'll say, when I talk about my grandchildren, I mentioned and Jacob in heaven. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You know, and then they are uncomfortable, but it's like, I want it to be okay. I want them to see that I'm okay. And there he is in heaven, and he's still part of my life. I still have a relationship with him. It didn't exist. It didn't stop when he died. My relationship with Jacob is still there with my grandchild.
Yeah, when people ask me, I have 6 living grandchildren. I have two grandbabies in heaven. They were miscarriages, and I honor them. I also do creativity. I paint and stuff, and I have a tree painted on my grandkids. I have a room just for my grandkids. There's a tree painted on the wall, and the leaves are all their handprints.
Oh.
And I have 2 balloons, 2 purple balloons for each of the little babies that we lost. So I honor them that way, and we need to honor them. So your grandson's name is Jacob. What was your husband's name?
My husband's name was David. My mother was Irma, or Amy was her art name. She had an art name.
An art name, that's cool.
How many of us have an art name?
I don't have an art name. I have a new name in 1988. I changed my name, but but it's not an art name, but it is a new name, and I love my name. So you are also a therapeutic art coach. What's a therapeutic art coach? Will you share with us what that is, how you became that, and just dive into that for us?
So at some point, I took online classes to become a certified grief counselor, and I started what I call an annual grief retreat, although I'm not sure where it's going to be this coming year. But and I instinctively probably turned to creativity because of my creative mother, because I found solace in journaling. So I like to work those kinds of things into the grief retreat. We might have speakers, but we also have the hands-on stuff. And so it changes every year. But delving into the journaling, at first I was just doing expressive writing for healing workshops, and all by themselves. And I still do those. I still do those online and also in person. And I'm not an artist. So when I talk about painting on rocks or making a collage or whatever, you know, that doesn't necessarily come naturally to me. And it doesn't come naturally to the people who attend my workshops. But I even have men come, and sometimes I think, does a man really want to make a collage? And they have so much fun doing it, or they get something out of it. And that's the main point, to have fun, get something out of it, maybe to make something in honor of that person, like for an ornament for Christmas tree or whatever it is. There's just something about, I don't know, that hands-on activity. So I took some online classes when I started to get interested in that, because I'm not an artsy person other than words. My art is words. I thought I needed a little bit of training to figure out how to incorporate that for other people without having to have art or that talent naturally. And so the classes I took just showed, just different activities that you could do to kind of jumpstart those creative juices, maybe use both sides of your brain and stuff. And I use those also in just jumpstart your creativity workshops, which have nothing to do with grief, but can help us in our grieving. So I use it in grief workshops and grief classes, but I also just use it because it's even if we aren't artsy, like our body is built to withstand grief, our body is also built to create. Whatever it is that is in us was in there as a child, that somebody either stifled or encouraged. There was something in you that was creative, and you see it in little kids. They're getting their hands dirty, and they're making mud pies, and they're finger painting and coloring outside of the lines, and they're just naturally drawn to crayons and stuff. That's in us. And we can use that for our healing. We can use that to get through tough stuff, like at the beginning of the pandemic, people naturally turned to creativity, whether it was gardening, baking, or whatever it was. So there's something healing in creativity, and we're designed to be creative. And so that's why I incorporate that into different workshops that I do.
Yeah, it reminded me at the beginning of the pandemic, there was even a Facebook group of Rainbows Over Michigan, I think is what it was called. And people were you couldn't get chalk at the store anymore because all
No.
the kids had all the colored chalk, and they were painting their windows, and there was colored chalk on the sidewalk. And it was like, yeah, people did. When you said that, I'm like, yeah, I remember that. People did do that.
I paid $15 for a little box of chalk online at the beginning of the pandemic because I couldn't find it anywhere and I wasn't going out anyway. And it was so expensive, but I wanted to do something on the sidewalks because I had all of a sudden people were walking past my house. Nobody walked past my house before that. They were taking walks, and I wanted inspiring messages, and I tried doing rainbows and flowers, and my daughter got in on it and stuff. So yeah, we naturally turned to that during trauma, during hard times.
I think it's in us, like you said. I mean, I believe we're created in the image of God, and he's a creator, and we're made in his image. So we're creative because we're like him. Yeah. You know, but people create in other ways. They create with music, and you created with words. I mean, people create in a whole variety of ways. It doesn't even have to be artsy, like you said. Right. People create. It's just, they make something seemingly out of nothing. So you had mentioned you did the grief retreats. How does that work at the grief retreat? You mentioned you did it. Sometimes you break off into little groups, but sometimes you don't. I mean, what would someone expect?
Every year
is it a one-day thing? Is it over a weekend? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, it's usually 2 days. Well, when I started it, and I don't even know how I had the gall to start something when I didn't know what I was doing, but when you feel led to do something, I just knew I wanted to hear some inspirational speakers. I wanted to hear from other people that you can get through this, you can be okay. And so I found a couple people who were willing to speak at one of my first grief retreats. I incorporated a little, and that was like one evening. And then you could stay for the next day, and you could include, I don't even remember what I did that first year. I know I did the journaling, and then I've done vision boards, which is envision your life without a person that's no longer there. I know I've done the painting of the rocks, making your own journal, just different things every year. I kind of follow the spirit where I'm led to what it's going to look like. I think one day is what I will probably settle on, a one-day retreat, because 2 days you have to have someplace for them to stay overnight. And I noticed we had fewer men when we incorporate the creativity, but that's okay. I don't think men attend grief things as much as women anyway. They're not used to sharing. They're scared to death of going into a room where people might cry, heaven forbid. But whenever I do have a man attend any of the things, they always come to me and tell me it was helpful to them. So I've always encouraged husband-wife prices, for some of the things that I do, different things like that. But yeah,
it's important for men to attend, but they do. They avoid it. One gentleman I interviewed for my podcast, in fact, his book is just coming out now, but he was sexually abused as a child, and he hid it for 40 years.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, because of something happened, it made it come out. And I interviewed him because I reach for the men because they hide. Yes. Women are much more easy to reach than men are. And it's when they hear a man encouraging them to do it, I'm hopeful that they listen more. I don't know if they do, but I'm hopeful.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have books. Tell us about your books. You have 7 books and then a new one coming out too. Tell us about your books.
So I have books about couponing. Is coupon crazy? Because I was a crazy coupon lady. And all of these books were released after 2012, after my husband died.
Wow.
So it's amazing to me that my life could have changed so much besides having to go out to work. And I also signed all these book contracts after he died. So Coupon Crazy, The Science, the Savings, and the Stories Behind America's Extreme Obsession. That's just a fun book talking about the history of coupon, because I was a couponer, and anybody in your audience who knows what the word refund means, they would love it, because back then companies were giving us free toys and free tennis shoes and everything. I dig in the garbage. I mean, it was just a fun book. And then Refined by Fire is the one that deals directly with losing mother, husband, and grandson in the space of 3 years. A journey of grief and grace, because it was a journey for me, both of grace and learning to be a different person, and learning to be a better person, but also a journey when I discovered a personal relationship with God. And that's how God got me, is through the losses. Chemotherapist, How Cancer Cured a Marriage was written. It was written during the time I sat next to my husband during his cancer treatment. Wow. And I'd hold his hand with one of mine and then write with the other, because I couldn't find a book where the cancer person survived. And I wanted to do that. Of course, by the time the book came out, he was not a survivor, but he was a survivor of cancer. And so that was just an uplifting, really a love story about what happened to our marriage. I've got Mary and Me co-written with my best friend, A Lasting Link Through Ink, written with Mary Jedlicka Humpston, because we wrote letters to each other for over 30 years back and forth. And it was pretty much a friendship based on letters until my husband's death. And then she came, and she was that person that I hope everybody has, is she came every month, once a month for 18 months to take me out to eat, to listen, to let me cry. I mean, how many of us have a Mary like that, you know? So we look at faith, we look at loss, we look at mothering small children. We're both writers. We look at what is it like to be a housewife writer, a mom who writes. Expressive Writing for Healing is actually a journal, and it's a guided journal. So there's little beginnings to each chapter, kind of to jumpstart your own journaling. If you ever want to try journaling, I mean, all you need is a notebook and a piece of paper, a notebook and a pen. But if you want the journal where you can actually work through some things and read through some things, that's Expressive Writing for Healing, Journal Your Way from Grief to Hope. And my fun one, the one that was released during the pandemic, which is called To Be Creative and dedicated pretty much to my mother, the creative muse. It's a guide to reigniting your creativity. And I delve into grief in this one. In fact, I touch on grief in every single one of these books. I thought when I remarried last year that maybe I was going to lose my writing, because all my writing was fueled on grief. And I thought, what's going to happen now that I'm so happy? Will I even be able to write? Was all my writing fueled by grief? Well, grief touches our life in so many different ways. He's a widower, I'm a widow. So we both understand where the other person is coming from. And I was so glad the first time I wrote after I was married him, and so happy. I thought, oh, okay, I didn't lose it. I did not lose that. You can write without grief, but it was a little bit scary, because I thought, what if I lose it all now? What if I can't write anymore? Because these books all came out and they all touch on grief in some way, a little bit, you know. And the book that will be coming out in 2024 it's a children's book, which is so different for me. But when my husband died in 2012, I did not know how to help my 8-year-old. And in fact, every book I picked up at the library that everybody encouraged me to go get was not helpful at all. In fact, she pushed him away. It was not helpful to talk about, I won't say names of books, but it didn't help my daughter to hear about a leaf that falls off a tree. She didn't care about a leaf. She cared about losing her dad, you know, or soup. Soup made out of tears. She didn't care about that. She needed to hear what this book that took me 9.5 years to write. And then it just came to me one day. It took me that long to write it. It's what she needed to hear. And when I finished it, I sat and cried. But it'll come when she's 20 years old, it'll be released. It'll be too late for her. But I had people who read it and said it helped them with the death of their mother, and they're an adult. So I think it will be a very helpful book. But basically what it is someone you love has died. That's the first sentence. Someone you love has died. You know, so it's just a children's book that I hope will be helpful.
Awesome. So how can people connect with you? You have so much to offer. How can people connect with you?
You can find me at marypotterkenyon.com. You can find me, Mary Potter Kenyon, on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn. Just look for Mary Potter Kenyon.
Awesome. And your books are available on Amazon and in bookstores?
Yes. Anywhere that books are sold, you can get them.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Mary. I enjoyed hearing your story and have so much to offer people, and we got to pause and have people pay attention to this. I love when we get to do that in interviews. I just love that so much. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Okay. So there you have it. Wasn't that amazing? What Mary has to share, all that creativity and different things. Oh, and I just thought of something we wanted to touch on that she was going to bring up specifically that she does. It's called blackout poetry. And we forgot to touch on it. So reach out to her and ask her to tell you about her blackout poetry. She explained it to me, and I don't want to mis-explain it because then it would be like playing telephone with the can, like when you were a kid. So I hope you enjoyed today. I'm sure you did. And so until next time, I'm Danielle Burnock from DanielleBurnock.com. Love yourself from Survive to Thrive, that lady on the internet who loves you. Mwah.